So last time we were seeing Satyavan and Savitri moving together in the forest. The young, eager husband showing to his beloved all the beautiful things amongst whom he was living. The trees, the birds, the rivers, the mountains, his childhood companions, how he grew and all that. This is a kind of recapture of what we have seen in the book of love. When Satyavan was making advances towards Savitri, he was describing the beauty and the wonder of the forest and how he had grown. He was describing it. Savitri came to the hermitage, started living there, but almost for 1 year, she never moved out of the hermitage. And she was not really aware of the richnesses of the forest. She had not seen those things at all. Now it is for the first time that they are moving together, and he is showing all the great things, the beautiful things, the wondrous things, the intimate things of the forest to his beloved. He showed her all the forest riches, flowers innumerable of every odor and hue, and soft, thick, clinging creepers, red and green, and strange, rich plumaged birds, to every cry that haunted sweetly distant above, replied with a shrill singer's name, most sweetly called. Bird calling its mate from one tree to the other tree, and how they were intimately connected with each other. He spoke of all the things he loved. They were his boyhood's comrades and his playfellows. It is in their company that he had grown up there, coevals and companions of his life. Now, you see, this is the kind of an identity he has with all the objects and the trees and the birds in the forest. Coevals, they are equal to him in every respect. In consciousness, there is such a deep identification of the two that they have become a part of him. Here in this world, you see, this happens even in our ordinary life. See, you have got dogs, you have got pets, you have got birds, peacocks, and all that thing. You grow so intimate with them that they become a kind of your own family members. You see, in that way, you see. Coevals and companions of his life here in this world, whose every mood he knew. That is the identification Satyavan had, you see. Their thoughts, which as a common mind are blank, he shared. Now this is what is Satyavan. He is not a common mind. Their thoughts which to the common mind are blank. The common mind does not understand the language, what they are speaking. So such is the deep identification with all the objects he had. He shared to every wild emotion felt an answer. And obviously Savitri is listening to all that he is narrating to her, quietly, deeply, intently. Deeply she listened, but to hear the voice that soul would cease from tender word and treasure his sweet cadences beloved, for lowly memory when none by her walked, and the beloved voice could speak no more. So he will be no more there, and she will be only remembering what he was speaking for long, you see. You can see, this is a different type of poetry. What we are seeing here in this canto is a different type of. It is not exactly epic. It is lyrical narrative. It is of the nature of a narrative. And that is quite understandable because what Shivantu had written, this was written by him in the Arya period, 1916 to 1918. At that time, the idea of Savitri as an epic was not there. And later on, it got totally changed, you see. The style, the contents, the epic greatness, magnificence, all that thing which is there, solidity which is there, that is not there in the narrative, you see, in that sense, you see. But at the same time, it is very intimate, very lyrical, very deep, you see. And you can see from here, he shared, you see, these lines. Their thoughts which to the common mind are blank, he shared. The lines are overflowing. In the epic, in the entire epic, there are end-stop lines. End-stop lines. To every wild emotion felt an answer. Again, it is overflowing. To every wild emotion felt an answer. What is called ansama? Enjoyment. The lines are overflowing. Deeply she listened, but to hear the voice. Again, the lines are overflowing, you see. Yeah. But little dwelled her mind upon their sense. What is talking about all that? Yes, she understands, appreciates, and all that thing, but she is not going to pause on that. What weighs in her thought, in her heart, in her mind, in her will is death. All the way. But little dwelled her mind upon their sense of death, not life. She thought her life's lone end. That is her main concern now, main occupation. She is kind of possessed by that alone, you see. Love in her bosom hurt with jagged edges of anguish, moaned at every step with pain. So that is the whole thing. The love which is there, that itself has become a rough stone, and it is that rough stone which is causing pain to her in her heart. You see. Of anguish moaned at every step with pain, crying. And when that pain is there, she utters a cry. What cry? Now perhaps his voice will cease forever. Even by some vague touch of breast. Sometimes her eyes looked round as if their orbs might see the dim and dreadful God's vast approach. So she is anticipating the arrival of the dim and dreadful God. Any moment now it will happen. He will come to snatch away the soul of Satyavan. Any moment it might happen with you. Dim and dreadful God. But Satyavan had paused. He was working so that he wanted to finish off his work quickly and give more time to his beloved. But as he was working hard, he felt tired, exhausted, drained out, and therefore he stopped. But Satyavan had paused. He meant to finish his labor here, that happy, learned, uncaring, they too might wander free in the green deep. Unconcerned, when I read about the job which he has to do, he wants to finish it off, be rid of it, get rid of it, and give maximum time to his beloved. It is for the first time they are in the wilderness together like that. You see. Primeval mystery of the forest heart, wordless but near, she watched. She is not going to speak anything at all, but her eyes, they are intent upon him all the while, constantly watching him. She will not allow him to slip out of her sight. No turn to lose of the bright face and body which she loved, bright face and body. Now it is that which is soon going to be, it is that which is soon going to be grey and tarnished. Now it is bright face and body. Soon, in few minutes perhaps, it will become grey and tarnished. You see. Her life was now in seconds. Now, of course, it is not her life, obviously, it is his life. But her identification with his life is so much such oneness that his life is her life. In the strictest sense, her would stand essentially to something like a transferred adjective, pronoun, you see, transferred pronoun, you see. Her life was now in seconds, not in hours, and every moment she economized like a pale merchant leaned above his stall, the measure of his poor remaining gold. This is what we had seen last time. And I was working, but Satyavan wielded a joyous axe. Joyous, he doesn't know that shortly he will die, that there will be worry, there will be grief and all that. He doesn't know that he will get pain. But at this particular instant, he is joyous because his beloved is there in his company. And therefore, in that joy, he wants to finish off his work and be with her for a longer time all the while. Therefore, the joyous act, the act itself would become shortly an instrument of pain, but at this point, it is a joyous act. Soon it will become an instrument of pain, you see. He sang high snatches of a sage's chant, that peal of conquered death and demons slain, and sometimes paused to cry to her sweet speech of love and mockery, tenderer than love, conquered death and demons slain. Well, this is what the tradition would say. This is a kind of a
Premonition.
pardon?
Premonition?
A kind of a tradition, yeah.
Tradition.
Yeah.
Premonition.
That period of conquered death and demons slain. Puranak. You see, the Purana, that is what they will sing. The glory of God.
Means he somewhere in his subconscious,
Yeah.
he conquers death.
Yeah.
He slays the demons. So actually, it's a
Yeah,
premonition.
but it could be he has no idea, but it is the samskara, the effect or the tradition which is there on him. The Puranas sing on the conquest of gods, of glory of God, and the removal of the obstacles and things like that. So he is chanting, sages chant. That is what the sages will do. That all the obstacles which are there, they should disappear. So even while they are working, that will be their concern all the while. There should not be any obstacles at all on the way. And he is, in that sense, chanting that kind of a song, you see. Yes, I am doing my work. Not that he is anticipating difficulty, any obstacle. He is happy, he is joyous, and the joy itself could be so intense, so powerful, that it might attract the evil force. See, it is possible. It can attract the evil. And there, he is talking, even if it comes, it will be slain, it will be destroyed, it will be removed. The intensity of joy can be an occasion for the evil forces to invade. It happens, you see. They don't like you to be very happy, you see. And that field of conquered death and demons slain, and sometimes pause to cry to her sweet speech of love and mockery tenderer than love. She, like a pantheress, leaped upon his words and carried them into her cavern heart. She wants to treasure them and hold them into her heart all the while. Cavern heart, Hridaya Guha. Guha, that is called cave. Hridaya means heart. Hridaya Guha. She wants to go and keep it there safely, his words. But as he walked, his doom upon him came. Now that's the beauty of it. The beauty is he is meeting death as he worked. Death in the action of life. Most of the time, what happens? The doom comes, death comes when you are lying in the bed, your terminal illness is there, whatever it is, the lingers on, you see. You don't work at all, you see. You have lost all your senses, consciousness, everything. But here he is active, fully active. He is active, working. It is as if that kind of a work which brought the doom to him. It is too great a thing for it to be allowed, his work. And that must be terminated, and therefore the doom comes. His work is so great that the doom cannot allow it to continue. Upon him came. And then he is describing the violent and hungry hounds of pain. Hounds of pain. They are lusting for the flesh and blood of man. Hounds. Hounds of death. They are lusting for that, waiting for that to happen. Hungry, violent, of course. Hounds of pain. In other words, they are waiting to suck away all his vital energies. That is what they are doing. The vital force which is there in him, it is that they would like to take away from him. The violent and hungry hounds of pain travel through his body, biting as they passed silently. That is what they are doing, biting. And all his suffering breath besieged, strive to run, lie strong, hard course, and be free. So what is actually happening here is, it is the vitals which are being attacked by the hounds of death. They are lusting on it, and it is because of that there is a kind of a suffocation, if you like to say. Suffering breath besieged. Strive to rend. Now it is that which is rending life's strong hard cords. So actually what is happening here is, it is an attack on his heart. And it is that which is becoming the physical cause of death. Heart, not mind, not brain. Heart. Heart, strong heart cause. It is not brain, it is not nervous, but it is cordial. So it's kind of a cardiac attack. The physical.
Cardiac
Ca-
attack is different than heart attack.
It is not stopping of brain.
Yes, the cardiac attack, cardiac arrest.
Now he is so excited, so emotional, so exhausted with work and all that thing, and the mood is so intense that it is kind of causing his heart to become extra active to withstand the intensity of all that. It is, you see that.
Because everybody has a cardiac
No,
arrest.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, the cause would lie strong heart, ran lives strong heart cause. Actually, we shall see that thing again. Then helped as if a beast had left its prey. A moment in a wave of rich relief. So he is caught by the beast, but the beast has left it there, that prey, and walked away. So to some extent, there is a kind of relief to the prey. Then helped as if a beast had left its prey, a moment in a wave of rich relief, rebound to strength, and happy is he stood, rejoicing and resumed his confident toil. He's again getting up, doing his work, but with less seeing strokes. He's chopping the wood with less seeing stroke. Now the great woodsman hewed at him, and his labor ceased. Now the poetic technique which the author is present here is he is having the axe in his hand and he is cutting the tree. But it is not that some great woodsman. It is he who is wielding the axe and chopping off Satyavan, you see, as a tree branch, you see. Now the great woodsman hewed at him and his labor, he is of course Satyavans, not woodsman, you see, Satyavans, you see. See, lifting his arm, he flung away the poisoned axe far from him like an instrument of pain. So, what was a joyous axe, as I said earlier, has now become an instrument of pain. Satyavan will get a joyous axe in the beginning, but now that itself has now become an instrument of pain. Now, there are a couple of things here. Woodsman. In the revised edition, W is small. Woodsman's. It is small, lowercase. Now the great woodsman hewed at him, and his labor ceased. So that is the metaphorical way of saying the approaching death of Satyavan. Now this should not be interpreted that it is a kind of an accidental hit of the axe by which Satyavan died. He is not hit by his own axe and then he collapsed. It is not that at all. So what we are saying is basically, the general causes of such a death are either by hitting yourself with an axe like that, but that is ruled out here. Although the image is of axe in a metaphorical sense, the other cause could be a snake bite in the forest, thick forest and all that thing, accidentally the snake comes bite and gets poisoned and collapses. That is also not there. Nowhere it is indicated like that. In the other story, other narrative by Shivanu, Priyamvada, it is the snake bite which is the cause of death. Here it is not that at all. And even in the case of the snake bite, you see, by axe, the death can be more or less instantaneous. More or less instantaneous. By snake bite, it is never instantaneous. Even if the most poisonous result snake bites you, it takes you at least 2 hours to die. For the poison to work out and all that thing, you are still living. But this is happening within minutes, moments. So it is certainly not the snake bite, you see, it is not the axe. So the only cause is overexertion, summer heat, anxiety, the emotional stress in which Satyavan is doing things, and it is that which is rending life's strong hard chords. So the physical cause would be here in this one.